Long before Paul Mashatile became one of the most powerful figures in South African politics, his foundation was laid in the dense streets of Alexandra Township. Born in 1961, Mashatile's political roots emerged in the anti-apartheid struggle, but alongside activism, he began building something else, a tightly controlled patronage network that would later be known as the Alex Mafia. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Alexandra was a hotbed of political mobilization. Mashatile, together with a circle of comrades who would later occupy key state positions, formed bonds that became both ideological and financial alliances. According to a 2007 exposé by the Mail and Guardian titled Mashatile and the Alex Mafia, this group included influential figures such as Mike Mail, Bridgman Sitole, and Kenki Kakana, Palesa Mashatile Nonkwelo, Paul's daughter and Parks Tau, the current Minister of Trade and Industry. The media, insiders and political rivals gave them a name that stuck, the Alex Mafia. Their rise coincided with the dawn of democracy, when provincial and municipal structures were being built from scratch. Mashatile positioned his allies in strategic administrative, political and business posts. Tenders, appointments and procurement streams were centralized under loyalists. The group would eventually infiltrate Gauteng's provincial government, the city of Johannesburg, municipal agencies, state-owned entities and business fronts linked to public contracts. Mashatile's early power began consolidating in 1994-1996, when he became a senior figure in the Gauteng legislature. From 2001, he served as MEC for Housing, then MEC for Finance and Economic Affairs, and by 2007, he was already a dominant force in Gauteng politics. The Mail and Guardian's August 31, 2007 article lifted the curtain on Mashatile's inner circle. It revealed how he and his Alexandra allies had embedded themselves across the provincial and metro structures. The report warned of crony appointments, tender patronage, strategic deployment of friends, closed tender channels, and business proxies benefiting from state contracts. The article described how businesses linked to Alex Mafia associates would secure Gauteng contracts repeatedly, especially in housing, infrastructure, arts and culture, and economic development portfolios. Even then, critics noted how Mashatile avoided the limelight, presenting himself as a soft-spoken operator while controlling the flow of money and influence behind the scenes. Mashatile used the ANC's deployment strategy to install his network. Procurement links were formed between those offices and private companies tied to family, friends, and political benefactors. Names like Mike Mail repeatedly surfaced in redevelopment and housing projects, while others used corporate vehicles to access tenders. By the mid-2000s, whispers of corruption, fronting, influence peddling, and ANC business forums were common. Even when corruption rumors surfaced, Mashatile evaded direct implication by acting as the architect rather than the operator. Those who understood the network referred to it as a closed-loop patronage system. Public money went through cadres, tenders were awarded to associates, and the economic power fortified political control. By 2007, he was already one of the most networked power brokers in the ANC. His influence in Gauteng grew each year, and with it came infrastructure projects worth hundreds of millions, most awarded through processes benefiting his associates. This was not accidental or scattered, it was an organized, sustained power project. By the time the public would later hear of his children winning tenders worth tens of millions, or associates throwing lavish parties at corruption-accused mansions, the groundwork had already been crafted over 2 decades. The Alex Mafia was not a rumor. It was the origin story of a patronage empire. By the mid-2010s, Paul Mashatile's political power was no longer just built on alliances, it had matured into a multi-layered financial empire. What began with strategic deployment and cadre networks in Gauteng quietly evolved into a web of companies linked to his children, their friends, and longtime associates. The Alex Mafia's influence had become intergenerational. The investigations that followed in 2024 and 2025 would reveal how contracts worth tens of millions were channeled through relatives and proxies often tied to Gauteng provincial tenders. The mask of political respectability was cracking, and suddenly names, dates, invoices, and bank trail evidence began to surface. A September 2025 investigation by News 24 revealed one of the most significant corruption-linked contracts involving Mashatile's family. A tender value of 91 million rand linked to two of Mashatile's children were directly linked, Tiniko Mvelase and Thabiso Mashatile. Their companies and joint ventures received lucrative contracts through provincial departments and municipal-linked entities. Some were awarded through subcontracting arrangements that concealed beneficial ownership. Others were tied to IT, events, consultancy, and infrastructure work. A notable feature of these tenders was the involvement of longtime associates of their father in facilitating access, pushing through paperwork, or disguising relationships. Shell companies, layered directorships, and silent partners were common structures. Despite attempts at secrecy, public records and leaked departmental procurement documents exposed their involvement. A follow-up expose on 29th of July 2025 by News 24 highlighted the second family-linked fortune 49 million rand worth tenders in Gauteng. Beneficiaries were friends of Mashatile's sons, not just the children themselves. These contracts overlapped with the same time period as the 91 million rand deals. Key individuals and entities tied to the 49 million rand are close allies of Tiniko and Thabiso. Business partners were operating through newly registered entities, companies with no prior track record winning tenders above 10 million rand, and direct links to departments in Gauteng responsible for service delivery projects. Some directors in these companies had previously appeared in social media posts, events, or business gatherings involving the Mashatile family. The network was familial, not coincidental. A separate News 24 investigation on 30th July 2025 exposed the social and political theatre around these deals. Key figures were Edwin Sodi, corruption-accused businessman with deep ties to ANC networks, Hangwani Morgan Mamela, Vusi Katmatlala, Lebohang Maile, the younger brother of Mike Maile, who's currently the MEC of Finance and Economic Development of Gauteng. Sodi's mansion, which had also been linked to previous corruption investigations involving asbestos tenders and political bribery. The event was not a private affair. Photos and videos surfaced showing luxury cars, expensive champagne, and high-powered political attendees, all while public scrutiny around Mashatile's network was intensifying. These gatherings were not random parties. They were hubs where business, politics, and tenders were stitched together. Mashatile's allies were at the party. Vusi Katmatlala was there, Hangwani Morgan Mamela was there, and many others. 2024 and 2025, pressure was mounting. Media exposés were frequent. Whispers of investigations by oversight bodies increased. But every time a scandal broke, the public response followed a familiar script. Mashatile denied knowledge of his children's contracts. Even as amounts like 91 million rand and 49 million rand became public, there was no meaningful accountability. The networks were too entrenched, the relationships too old, the influence too valuable. From Alexandra in the 1990s came a generation now cashing in on Gauteng's budget in the 2020s. And while journalists were uncovering where the money was flowing, the public was only beginning to see how far the deception went. Paul Mashatile has mastered a brand of politics where proximity to power is currency. Access is traded like stock, and family and associates quietly slide into billion-rand deals under the cover of state machinery. Two scandals, one involving the National Lottery and the other his Paris entourage, expose how his orbit operates, quietly, strategically, and always in the shadows of public accountability. In late 2023, South Africa prepared to award the multi-billion rand contract for the fourth National Lottery license, an 8-year jackpot estimated to be worth tens of billions. What the public didn't know was that one of the beneficiaries was sitting within Mashatile's extended family. An Amapungane investigation revealed that Kuma Bogatsu, the sister-in-law of Deputy President Paul Mashatile, is a co-owner of Bellamont Gaming, a company that holds shares in Sizekaya Holdings, the new operator of the National Lottery. Bellamont Gaming was quietly registered in December 2023. Its directors, Bogatsu and Durban businessman Moses Tembe, the father of the late Anele Tembe. Sizikaya Holdings, with Bellamont as a shareholder, secured the lottery license. The Lotteries Act explicitly prohibits politicians and their families from benefiting directly or indirectly from lottery operations. Yet Bogatsu's stake is defended by Sizikaya as a minority interest, as if the scale of her share, not the ethics of her relationship to the deputy president, is the real issue. Mashatile doesn't need to sign anything himself. All he needs is a family member placed neatly in the corporate architecture, and the deal rolls forward quietly. No press briefings, no parliamentary scrutiny, no public transparency. Just billions in projected revenues and sliding shares in private hands linked to political office. Fast forward to June 2025. Mashatile leads a high-profile South African delegation to the France-South Africa Investment Conference in Paris. Officially, 80 private sector delegates were cleared to attend, but 2 individuals who were not on that list ended up rubbing shoulders with diplomats, investors, and Mashatile himself. Sibuyile Magingsa, a Johannesburg tenderpreneur whose company, Nutinox, secured 263 million rand from Joburg Water in 2024 for water tanker contracts now under investigation. Lesedi Pala, described as his partner, and allegedly the niece of the late Ambassador Nathi Mthethwa. They were not listed. They were not vetted. They were not formally invited. Yet they were treated like official delegates. Even more suspicious is Magingsa's network. His water tanker contract partner, Emmanuel Serufusa, appears alongside him in M&S Traffic Services. I once did a video this months ago. You can watch it at the end of this video. By 2024 and 2025, Paul Mashatile was no longer just a seasoned politician with a powerful network. He was South Africa's deputy president, and possibly our next president, occupying one of the most scrutinized offices in the country. Yet while public pressure grew, his empire moved deeper into the shadows, hiding in proxies, half-truths, and lifestyle denials. Investigations into his wealth, properties, and the political matrix around him revealed a man constantly trying to manage perception even as evidence of excess and deception piled up.
In the presence of everyone assembled here, and in full realization of the high calling I assume as Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, I, Shifokosa Paulus Mashatile, swear that I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa.
Paul Mashatile takes the oath of office as South Africa's new Deputy President. It's an undeniably proud moment for the man fondly referred to as Spokes by those closest to him.
News 24 published a devastating fact-check on one of Mashatile's biggest claims about his personal security and property dealings. Mashatile had previously insisted that he did not own or finance the luxury waterfall property. There had been an assassination attempt targeting him at the property, and his name was unfairly linked to corruption through false media narratives. However, the investigation contradicted much of this. The waterfall home was valued at 37 million rand. The property is tied to business people linked to Mashatile and his patronage network. No conclusive evidence existed of any credible assassination attempt. His explanations contained deliberate omissions and distortions.
There's a probe underway after one of Deputy President Paul Mashatile's official cars were allegedly shot at earlier this month. This has been confirmed by Mashatile during a visit to KwaZizabantu mission in KwaZulu-Natal.
Well, you must have heard that the police are investigating. What really happened is that as I was driving from the NEC, my car was hit what initially I thought it was stones. And when we got home, the protectors said no, the impact is too much. They want to take it for checking because, you know, a bulletproof windscreen is quite strong to be damaged. And that's why they are doing the investigation.
Instead of clarifying ownership, he deflected. Instead of providing documentation, he accused journalists. The fact check effectively showed he had misled the public on both the house and the supposed threat. This mansion scandal became a symbol of the double life he cultivated: humble revolutionary in public, luxury patron in private. Paul Mashatile's rise was reinforced by a tightly connected patronage network involving his children, longtime associates, and political allies from the Alex Mafia era. Multi-million rand tenders, property deals, and state-linked contracts consistently benefited people within his inner circle, blurring the line between governance and self-enrichment. This was not accidental. It was systematic, calculated, and sustained through access to public power and weak oversight. The same names, companies, and beneficiaries appear across different deals, provinces, and time periods, showing how influence was leveraged to secure money and loyalty. Now, the real test is not what has been exposed, but what happens next. Will this network finally face accountability? Or has corruption become too deeply rooted to challenge?